Lumpia, lumpia, lumpia. Everyone do it with me. Lumpia, lumpia. When most people think of a charcoal grill, they're gonna relate it to hot dogs and hamburgers. What we're doing with the spark grill is totally different. These are probably not recipes that you've thought of doing on the grill. I think it's time to create some new traditions in grilling. Today we're going to be making a Filipino sweet dish called Turon. It's an egg roll with plantains, brown sugar on the inside, finished with a caramel sauce and a little bit of toasted sesame seed. I'm excited to try cooking the Turon on the spark because I know that the flavors from the charcoal are going to infuse back into the oils and the caramel sauce, but also I want to see what the spark can do. Can we be frying? Can we be frying? Lumpia or Turon can be considered something called a merienda, which in Filipino culture is the snack after the snack. Today for our ingredients, we have our egg roll wrappers. These are a wheat flour wrapper and they have a little bit of tapioca in them as well. Jackfruit, which is going to be one of the components on the inside. Today we're using a canned jackfruit. Jackfruit are, upwards of 50 pounds in total, so you can definitely go for the canned route for ease. We have eggs for our egg wash, caramel sauce that's going to be going on top of the lumpia to finish, toasted sesame seeds, as well as some vanilla bean ice cream that we still have in the freezer. And then the main component, which is going to be our plantains, or bananas as some call them, and brown sugar. The main difference between plantains and bananas is the sugar to starch content. We call plantains cooking bananas because the sugars develop over time with heat, whereas regular bananas just ripen and are sweet all on their own. Today, we're using the everyday brick. I'm gonna be cooking at 600 degrees, which is gonna allow for us to shallow fry in our pan. We have temperature control, which is gonna allow us to have a nice high heat coming out of the oil and a crispy product at the end. I tend not to cook on charcoal grills because normally the cooking is very uneven. You never really know what you're gonna get, and it's really hot one moment and completely burnt out the next. Cooking with a spark allows me to cook over a longer period of time with a much more precise temperature. And now that the spark brick has ignited, we're ready to stick our pan on. You can tell that we're using a pan that doesn't have a rubber handle, which means it's safe to be enclosed inside the grill. And we're also using the heat spreader because we're not gonna want direct flame on the bottom of the cast iron. While our grill is starting to heat up, we ignited the brick, we put the cast iron on there. It's been on the stove for about 3 to 4 minutes before it's ready to get the oil. And you heard me say stove because I'm almost using this like a stovetop today. We have our blended oil, which has a nice high smoke point going right into the pan. You want approximately 3/4 to an inch, depending on the kind of pan you're using, the depth. You just have to remember that the pan needs to be wide enough to cook the lumpia, which are anywhere from 3 to 5 inches in diameter, depending on the plantain. The most difficult part of this recipe is probably sourcing the correct paper. When I go to the store, I'm looking for just a very, very thin wheat egg roll paper. You can use pretty much anything that's got an egg roll consistency to it, but the nice thin wheat flavor is gonna be the best for this dish. Separating it from each other is the second most difficult thing about this dish, and it's gonna be really easy from here on out. So you just wanna gently separate the rice paper. It's very thin, so it's very fragile. It's best to keep this in the freezer, which is, it's sold in the frozen section in bags. Keep it frozen until you're gonna use it. And then you can keep a towel over the top of whatever you're not using to keep it from drying out. We're gonna cut open our first plantain. You'll notice I cut it in half. That's about the length of what we're gonna be looking for today. And so you're gonna take the plantain and you're gonna cut it into planks lengthwise. And then once again down the middle. Take the lumpia, diamond top. With the eggs, I just beat them up a little bit and add a little bit of an egg wash to the top of this and then gently just rub it with my fingers. Ahead of time, I have my cut plantain. That's gonna get tossed in some brown sugar. You can do palm sugar, you can do white sugar as well. I just prefer brown sugar for its flavor. On top of that, we have about half of a pod of a jackfruit just ripped and arranged right on top. The syrup of this that it comes with is not necessary for this recipe, but I've even heard of people using the syrup of the jackfruit at the top instead of an egg wash. I prefer to just do this version. And you can tell it's going down the equator, the filling, so from the top side, fold it over, and I'm just gently wrapping the egg roll wrapper right under the toppings and creating a seal. And then you do the same on either side, folding over, creating an envelope, and then gently tucking and rolling using all 10 fingers until I get to the very top. There you have it. That one looks fire. Today we got our hot vegetable oil. We're looking for 350 degrees on this. If you don't have a temperature reader at home or a thermometer, you can use just a piece of the rice paper that we're using and wrapping the egg rolls with. Drop it in. This here oil is ready, I can tell because it immediately fried. Now that my oil is preheated, I know my lumpia is gonna take about 8 to 10 minutes to heat up, which is the perfect time for me to be adding my caramel sauce. I'm just gonna gently warm it on the outside of the spark so that it's nice and toasty by the time my lumpia are fried. If you're gonna be making these ahead of time, it's best to freeze them for about 20 to 30 minutes if you're not gonna fry them right away while you're making them, and then bringing them all over to the grill and frying them at once. Just gently gonna add. Notice I'm laying away from myself. The oil is hot. You can do anywhere from, I would say, 2 to 6 at a time, depending on the size of your pan. I'm gonna test out with just the 2. I'm gonna be cooking one side of the lumpia for around 4 minutes, and then I'm gonna be flipping it over and browning the other side of the lumpia. What I'm looking for right now is to make sure that not much of the filling is escaped, which means that I've rolled these nice and tight, made a good seal with that egg wash, and the filling is gonna be nice and tender. That's warm. Pro tip, keep an eye on your caramel and make sure that it's in a vessel large enough so that it doesn't boil over and cause a mess on your spark grill. Golden brown on both sides. It's been about 8 minutes cooking. I'm gonna take these out and then I'm gonna pat them dry with a paper towel. So how I'm planning on plating this dish is just very simple. Again, this is meant to be an afternoon snack, something that's approachable and easy. I'm just stacking them. They're like little cigars in a way. Stack them. I have my warmed caramel. Just kind of drizzle that over the top. These will be naturally sweet, and you can add as much or as little caramel and/or toppings as you want. The last thing, for some nuttiness, I have my toasted sesame seeds. These are really great in the dish, and I think they add an overall additional flavor that is essential. And here you have it. All right, it's time to taste my creation. Wow. The plantains are soft, the wrapper is crispy. You get a little bit of the jackfruit every so often, and then the caramel sauce that I made along with the toasted sesame seeds. It's a complete bite. I could have 10 of these right now. The vegetable oil was smoked in this sense, as well as the caramel. So you have the smoke, which is a really delicious addition, especially to something that's otherwise a really sweet dish. It balances it perfectly, and I can't wait for you to try it.